Let's go.
Unstoppable kick-ass confidence. Are you ready?
Welcome to the Raw and Unscripted Show with Christopher Rausch, where we help you overcome your self-created crap without the self-help fluffy bullshit. Now please welcome our host, Christopher Rausch.
Shh. Be quiet. Be very, very quiet. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Raw and Unscripted Show. I am your host, Christopher Rausch, and you're at your place where I help you overcome your self-created crap without the self-help fluffy bullshit. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you're watching live on the video cast or you're listening to audio podcast, thank you guys so much for being here. We are on episode 239. We've done 239 episodes, and truth be told, actually this coming January is going to be our 4-year anniversary of doing the Raw and Unscripted Show. So thank you guys all for being here. I know we're all over the world, so thank you for tuning in from Australia to England to Scotland to India to Pakistan, all over the place, China. Thank you. Appreciate you guys showing up here every single Tuesday night. We do this live, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And this is a place for you guys to shift your perspective about your beliefs, about your past, your present, and your future, to really get aligned with who you are and to be able to kick ass and take names and not have any apologies for who you are and what you stand for. Because in this world today, so many times we look at what the negative aspect of it is of what's going on, and we find and we breed more of that. And so we encourage you to do tonight. I'm a little excited. What I encourage you to do tonight is take notes of the things that are most important to you, that really speak to you, to say, wow, that's really important. That's fascinating. And then I want you to repeat that back in your mind. I want you to make that a conscious habit of repeating what it is that really impacted you, because as you start to absorb that and as you start to implement that in your life, it's pretty incredible what it is that you can shift about your belief system. So I'm excited to have an amazing guest on tonight. He's been on the show, The Unfiltered Experience, my other show. He's been on there twice, and I've had just a great time talking with him, but I have to share him with Scott on that show. So this time I decided I wanted to hear all by myself, so we can just have a great conversation. So your questions, as always, are invited. If you're listening to the audio podcast, we encourage you towards the end. We're going to give you Earl's contact information. If you have questions for him personally, we invite you to go there and contact him. So that we'll have that at the end of the show as well. And it's also in the show notes where you can get a hold of him. So without any further ado, welcome to the Raw and Unscripted Show, Mr. Earl Ameen. What's going on, Earl? Good evening.
Hello, and good evening to you, Chris. Hello to everyone.
We appreciate you being here, Earl. I'm excited for this conversation because, like I said before in the opening, I've had to share you with Scott before, and we've had some really in-depth conversations. And one thing that I really appreciate about you is your ability to relay what can be complicated concepts. Say that 10 times fast. I am tongue-tied tonight. Complicated concepts, and you have such a beautiful way of articulating them so that everybody gets it. And it's not like it's over the top stuff, but I love the way you articulate stuff. So it's like, oh, duh. And that's what I invite people tonight, is to really kind of have those opportunities where you're like, okay, I never really thought about it that way. And so my first question for you tonight, Earl, as we've titled this show, Nothing's Impossible. What do you mean by that? When you think about nothing's impossible, some people can argue with that to the day is dawn. But how do you feel about that? Nothing is impossible.
Well, I'll begin by saying thank you for having me on your show. I'm really, really, really appreciate it. And that is the answer, that being on a show such as Raw and Unscripted can, for some people, seem impossible. But impossible, in my belief system, is a made-up word that was made to control our creativity. And there have been multiple reasons for that throughout history. But impossible means you can't do it. Now, impossible doesn't always have to apply to another, but I can tell you it's impossible. And if your belief system accepts that, you'll know that it's impossible for you. So I just call it a trick, and I don't fall for the trick. It was how old? I was probably in my early 20s when the concept of impossible first came up with something I was attempting to accomplish. And someone said, that's just impossible for you to do. And it, all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, you just fed raw programming into my mind. But it created cognitive dissonance And I had to spend some time thinking about it. So I did a full etymological study and on
Wow.
impossible, and it
You
just
went deep.
really say it again.
I said, you went deep, etymological.
Oh yeah, because what I really heard, what my consciousness, what my spirit heard that person saying, though they intended no harm, I heard them saying that I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I'm incapable, I don't have the prowess or anything that's necessary to achieve that goal. And let me tell you that I did prove them wrong, by the way, because not only was it possible, it was plausible and it was executable. Uh, but impossible, to every time I see the word, I have a little bit of see it that way, break that word down. I'm possible. And so
Bingo.
long as you exist, then everything is possible. It may not be plausible at that time. It may not be achievable at that time. But so long as you understand that it is not impossible, impossible in my nomenclature does not exist. And I get helpful with people who work with me when they speak about impossibility or in terms of impossibility. I say, hold on, let's stop. Let me hear what you just spoke.
Let me open these up for you a little bit.
Exactly. Let me open them up because your words actually have power.
Yes.
Actually have power. Excuse me. So I just, for a good many years, have had a relationship with the word impossible and words like it or akin to it, so that I am very specific with my use of it, with people that work around me, executives that I interact with. Even I had a conversation a few days ago with I can't think of a better word, but he was collecting trash. But we had a conversation that was about his reality. And he said, man, it's just impossible for me to get out of this situation. I said, stop right there. Now, did you hear what you just said? He said, what do you mean? And he repeated it again. And I said, you said, I didn't say it. No one else around you is saying it. You said it, that it's impossible for you to elevate yourself out of your circumstances. But all I see and hear is that you own your circumstances, is that you own your thinking, you own your words, so therefore you own your situation and you own your ability to elevate yourself. If it's only in your mind, if it's only in your mind that you are better than your circumstances, then impossible becomes a lie.
Preaching it already, Earl. Preaching it already. I love that fact that you brought up the impossible is I'm possible. And I sit there and I look at it. For me, I look at, the possibility of the thing that sticks out in my mind the most when you're talking about that is running the 4-minute mile. I can't remember who did it. I'm drawing a blank. But up until then, nobody said, oh, nobody can do it. Nobody can do it. Nobody can do it. Nobody can do it. I keep forgetting his name. I almost pops in there. Walker? No. But anyways, so, I mean, people know that it was never broken. Then all of a sudden, once he broke it, then what happened? Everybody went, it's been done. So it can be done. But to your point, Earl, that's 100% fact, is the fact. If you sit there, Henry Ford said it beautifully. If you think you can, or you think you can't, you are right, baby. The simplicity of that is so true, because somebody told me when I was a 7th grade homeless dropout, who had been through a lot of stuff, and this is no joke. A man looked at me. He didn't look at me. He looked in me, and he said, Christopher, he goes, you're only limited by the parameters of your own mind. I was 17 years old. I was drinking. I was doing drugs. I was a 7th grade dropout. I'd been homeless for 4 years, had been through a lot of stuff. And he said, Chris, you're only limited by the parameters of your own mind. Cause he said, what do you think about going back to school? And I'm like, I dropped out in the 7th grade. I was stupid. Like, what are you, crazy? He's like, well, what about a GED? I'm like, I don't even see. That's how stupid I am. I don't even know what a GED is. And so he got me to believe in the possibility that if you apply enough leverage, that if you have a big enough why and you don't give up, that it's pretty incredible what you can accomplish. Will it be overnight? No. But will it be worth it? Will it be challenging? Yeah, but it's going to be worth it on the other side. And I love that, because when, people sit there and think about the Jetsons, right? You and I grew up with the Jetsons, and look at, like, oh my God, look at, there's going to be flying cars, and there's going to be, people on video, talking to each other, and, all this different stuff. And now here we're living it. And now the movies that are portraying stuff that's going to be happening in the future. I mean, now we have these things. We have cell phones. I mean, who would have ever thought that everybody nearly in the world, I mean, some countries accepted, of course, would be walking around with a powerful computer in their pocket with the answers to everything. Yeah. So I love your thoughts on that, Earl, is the fact that when we can see it, we can achieve it. So tell us about a time in your life. You mentioned something before about something impossible. Talk to us about how you shifted from that, because I'm sure there might have been a point in your life where you thought things were impossible, or you thought things were challenging, or maybe you weren't good enough. Talk to us about that journey, being able to realize that whatever you put your mind to, you can accomplish.
Sure. I'll give you one from my past, and I'll give you one from my present.
Nice.
Because we are in constant pursuit of the truth of our reality. But oftentimes we don't know that that is what we are pursuing, because it really takes effort. It takes intention. And I remember when I was in college. I'd just gone to college. I think it was in my second year of college. I had to move off of campus. And because it turns out that my roommates really were indulgers in the selling of narcotics. I had no experience with that, and it scared me enough that I just moved off campus. I didn't even tell anybody. I just moved off campus, moved into an apartment with some guy I didn't even know, just so that I wouldn't be out on the streets. He departed rather suddenly, never came back. So I got kicked out of the apartment, and I was living on the streets.
Oh, wow.
But I had decided very early in the experience that situation was not me. It was not my identity. And that my circumstance I would not allow my circumstance to define me. And I never told my parents. Had I simply called my parents, they would have solved it. But I chose not to do that, and I chose to sleep behind dumpsters. There were occasions where I had to eat out of those dumpsters, eat out of garbage cans. But I never missed a class. You never saw me dirty, filthy, or stinky, because that was not who I am. So therefore, I made sure, though it seemed impossible, that I could do that. A young man, 17 years old, out on his own. I don't have a job. I don't have means to make money, but I worked it out. And I figured out that I could eat by sleeping behind a dumpster at a restaurant. Because when they close, they throw fresh food out, So not only could I eat that food, but I could also sell what was left.
Wow.
So that's how I made money. And I was in that situation for about 6 months. But again, it just never became who I am. It was just what was happening for me right now. It never became that it was impossible for me to maintain my dignity. It was just a situation. Now, that was in the past. Now, I've been through such situations many times throughout my life. And though I may not look it, some people seem to be surprised, but I'm 62 years old. I've been around and I know some stuff. So even now, most recently with Impossible, about 8-9 years ago, I decided that I wanted to build a business and build it globally. And this was the formation of Earls Enterprises. And I didn't have a product, I just knew that I know stuff. I've got experiences. I know how to figure things out. I'm really good at it. So I formulated that and polished it up and became a top global advisor, a strategist of a particular type, adaptive strategy. So it's not just, hey, figure out a way to do X, Y, Z, but it's how to figure it out so that even as the circumstances change, the strategy that I create adapts.
Wow.
And that's a different level. I found out that's a different level of strategy. So I've been blessed to be able to be in service to countries, to monarchs, to politicians, just all over the world. 20, I think we're in 29 29 countries now. And then the real challenge came because I decided what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be, what is my mission, what is my purpose in my life. And that's a whole nother story.
Mhm.
But once I figured that out, that it was that everything that I do must inure to the benefit of the human experience, to elevate, to improve that experience. If it does not demonstrate capacity, capability to do and maintain that, I don't get involved.
Nice.
You
Code of ethics.
call a code of ethics, quite right. But all along the way, impossibility kept nagging me. It kept whispering in my ear,
Mhm.
And I'm often reminded of that movie, A Beautiful Mind with Russell Crowe,
Yeah.
where at the end, he's still seeing his adversaries. He's still seeing those specters, but they have no influence because now I know what your power is and you have none. So you can be there if you want, but I don't give you any attention.
Mhm.
So it's taken me a few years, but I achieved what was presented to me as an impossible goal for a person such as myself, and one of my particular pigmentary persuasion, to be able to serve at such a high level, um, was presented to me as impossible. But I kept believing that I am possible just here. It wasn't I had to sit up and do mantras or anything.
Right.
It's just that no matter what circumstance I face, I know that so long as I'm possible, it is possible. Therefore, it is achievable. And if I am persistent, because the truth about success is really persistence. It's there's a cowboy movie, True Grit. It's about
Oh yeah.
having true grit. So if you are persistent in knowing that you are possible, that whatever you can conceive as possible can become possible, it is likely that you will achieve that possibility and it will become your reality.
Mm. Earl, you're reading my mind, and I love the fluidity which you're sharing this about because it really is about it's that simple aspect of it, like just change your beliefs, change your attitude, change your outcome. But there's so much more complexity in there. And when we think about the conditioning process that we've all been through from the age of 0 to 5, and the beliefs that were created within ourselves based on our parents and our siblings and our loved ones and our teachers. You're this, you're that. We've, like you said, that word, that perfect word, identity. Right. So I take this to mean like I was called stupid. I did poorly in school. They didn't know I had a seeing problem. They didn't know I had a hearing problem. They just was like, oh, Chris does bad in school. I had ADHD before they even knew what ADHD was. So I was just like, okay, like Chris is just basically stupid. My mom called me stupid. And so I had that belief system in my head, even when that guy, Bill, said, Chris, you can get your GED. And the thing that got me through that, Earl, is the fact that if I continue to take imperfect action, if I continue to push for that 1%, I've been thinking about that 1% thing all of my life, that compounded interest. If all I have to do is go call the place and find out if there's a GED service there. The next thing, all I have to do is I have to show up and just show up there. All I have to do is show up there. The next thing all I have to do is put a pencil and write my name. The next thing all I have to do is just do my best in that moment, answer the question as best as I can. The next thing I can do is I can wait and see what happens. The next thing I can do is I can study. And if we just continue along that line, we will find that success. But so many people, especially in today's generation, they want the Amazon, they want the instant gratification. We have to remember us older guys back in the day where if you wanted to know something, you had to get in your car, you had to get in a bus, you had to go to the library, you had to go to the card file, you had to go to read a book. You couldn't just go, hey Siri, give me this answer. What do you say to people who've got that negative opinion of themselves? They've grown up in that conditioning environment of where they don't feel like they're worthy. They don't love themselves necessarily. They have a lot of shame. They're maybe ashamed. Maybe they're depressed. What can we do? What tangible strategies can we give them to start rewiring that process? Like before you mentioned mantras, I don't know if you're into those, but what are some tangible things we can share with people who are listening tonight? Like, man, Earl, that sounds great. I would love to be able to do that, but I've thought this way for 45 years of my life. What do you say to those people, Earl?
I say that if you believe that you cannot achieve, it is only yourself that you deceive.
Ooh, he's a
Now,
poet.
Sometimes it comes out that way.
Nice.
But I would say that, look, I can prove to you right now that you have full power, dominion, and authority to alter your life, to conform to your ideal of it. I can prove it to you right now. And I would say, I often use this example. Okay, I put a pencil or a pen on the floor or on a table, and I say, okay, I want you to try to pick up that pen or that implement. I want you to try to pick it up. And first they look at me and I said, try to pick it up. And then they'll pick it up. And then, okay, well, I picked it up. I said,
Mhm.
what did you do? I picked it up. So you did that, did you? Yes, I picked it up. And feel them getting a little anxious. I
Right.
said, but you did not try to do that. Because often we speak in terms of try.
Yeah.
And so we confuse ourselves into thinking that, I tried, I've been trying, I'll keep trying. No,
Mhm.
say, eliminate that word from your vocabulary first.
Amen.
Speak only in what you will do, then measure your progress by what you have done. And if you've got a goal that's this big, like you mentioned, the 1%, break it down into 1% achievements.
Mhm.
This may give you something to do and to achieve, no matter how impossible it seems. But 1% compounded daily, how quickly will it take you to get to 100% fulfillment? And along the path, realize that you set your goal too small, that it can be even twice or thrice or 10 times, 100 times bigger than what you thought you could do. Because all it takes is one now. And I emphasize this over and over and over again, because sometimes we think our ideas have to extend beyond time and space. And we forget that all that matters is now. You have no power in the past. It is only a point of reference. And you
Yep.
have no authority to be able to create the future. But if you focus on now, you have power, you have dominion, and you have authority in now. So I want to produce a $500 million fund. Okay. What is the first 1% that I have to do? Got to come up with a name. Got to go develop the company. Do these little things. Keep your eye on your goal, but achieve each step at a time. And I don't promise anyone that things will work magically. But I'll tell you what, more people will achieve a higher level of success, whether in their commercial lives or in their personal lives, if they simply know, who am I right now? What is my decision right now? Decision comes from the Latin word. It means to cut away from. The
Mm.
proof of that is that incision means to cut into.
Right.
Excision means to cut out. Decision means to cut away from. So all of that confusion, all that stuff that everybody's telling you, you can't do that, blah, 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 cut away from and focus on that one thing today, now, that you can achieve. And you will get into a mental, a spiritual, and emotional practice of being able to cut away all of that mess and just say, you know what I achieved today? Yesterday, I didn't have a name for my idea. Today, I have a name for my idea. Tomorrow, I'll have gotten the URL for my idea. Then the next day, I go out and I get the license or whatever that's needed for my idea.
Yep.
Now is the answer for humanity's sake. Now is the answer. Tomorrow will build on itself. The past is only there as a point of reference. So refer to, I remember when somebody cheated me, but that isn't your identity. That is not your now circumstance, because you have the power to model that right now. And it can be totally different from what it was before. But now you have wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Now
You got
have
that experience.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I love what you're saying, Earl. I mean, I could listen to you all day long, and actually, I do. When you're on the show, I always go back and listen to it because half the time I have to be in interviewer like mode, like listening.
Right,
Okay, what
right.
question am I going to ask next? Who's in the house? And actually, I told Scott you were going to be here, so he says, "Looking good, Earl. Love you, Mr. Scott Goyette's in the house."
Praise God.
So I love that. I love that you said that word "trying." Right, because so many people sit there and say, "Oh, Chris, I'm trying. I'm like, what would happen? What would it look like if you just said, you're going to do it?" Like, instead of trying, I'm going to try to become a better salesman. I'm going to try to become a better father. I'm going to try. What if you just said, this is what I'm going to do? And you made that commitment in your brain. How likely do you think it would be that you would succeed in that?
Yeah.
And people sit there and just that little perspective shift, Earl, is like, they go, whoa. I guess that's just the way I've always thought. I'm like, okay, here I'm inviting you to have a little different perspective about what it is that you're saying. Because the words that you talked about, the words that you use have power. And if you're always saying trying, then that gives you an out. Like, at least I'm trying. Oh, you go to the gym one day a week, that you could try all you want, but that's not going to help you get in better shape, And so I want to pick on a different word that I love talking to people about, the word best, right? When we think about, Earl, you doing the best you can? I'm doing the best I can, Chris. All right, well, just try to do better. When we were little kids, again, going back to that conditioning process, Chris, you doing the best you can on this math test? Yes, I am. Okay, do your best. But nobody ever really qualifies that. Nobody ever sits there and says, okay, what is your best? I mean, I think in terms of my best is having a big why, right? When I think about having a big why, I think about, okay, what kind of leverage can I put into this that will help me become successful? Right. And no matter what I do, I mean, I ultimately went back on my GED, ultimately got a master's degree. I was the first person in my whole company who had a master's degree, and I was the fucking homeless guy. Right. So when I took that imperfect action every single day and just sat there and said, like you said, what can I learn today? What can I learn today? And realizing that when we do our best, I think there's blood, sweat, and tears involved. And I think when we do our best, we go to bed at night and we go, damn, I nailed it today. What are some of your thoughts on what we can do to inspire people when they're sitting there saying, Chris or Earl, I'm doing the best I can? And sometimes people are really doing their best because that's their ceiling. Oh, this is my best. But like, you look at a David Goggins, or you look at some other these endurance athletes, or some of these other people that, become Olympic champions. What did they do? They did it for 19 hours a day. They didn't do it for 6 hours a day. Talk to us about getting people to be inspired about doing their best.
Sure, and you give some good examples, but in every case, the first thing that came to my mind is persistence to exhaustion.
Mm-hmm.
So in anything that I do, I persist to exhaustion. Our family mantra is persistence produces. And so, like with a weightlifter, you that you've got to tire that muscle out. You have to persist until exhaustion. With any goal that you set, in order to do your best. Do is the active, yours is the possession, the ownership of it.
Right.
And best is what is produced when you own it with integrity and when you own it with pride. Best is produced so that you can look at that effort. And when you look back at that effort as a point of reference, then you see, yes, all right. If I had to do that all over again, I would know that I've done my best. Now, persistence in doing your best, one now to the next now to the next now, it isn't just a flat line. It's actually a line that stair steps up, because it gets easier and easier to do that best. But now you are persisting in doing your best, your possessive best, so you cannot help but get better at doing your best.
Mm-hmm.
All of life's answers, Chris, I believe, are really simple. When you look at it as they're being complicated, complex, it's difficult. But when you just look for how simple it is and you understand do versus try, you understand impossible is a lie. If you understand that being persistent will produce measurable outcomes. For me, I think life gets, I often resist saying life gets easier, but life becomes more achievable.
Right.
Much more achievable. And that's regardless of your circumstances. And again, you and I share a circumstance of having been displaced, being homeless, living out on the street. Man, I can talk about that to anybody. It's neither a badge nor is it a something I'm embarrassed about. There's no
Right.
shame around it because that's not my identity. That's something that happened to me, and more than once.
Hmm. I know that one. Mr. Scott says here, deep wisdom and beautiful spirit. Love you both. And he says here, so true. Life is simple, yet we create the complexity. And that's what we're actually just talking about in his group tonight. Is talking about the fact that sometimes we just overblow things because that's our reactionary state is to like, oh my God, to catastrophize. Can't remember what that word is. Something because it places us in that victim standpoint. Oh, when I'm a victim, people feel sorry for me. And that goes back to that childhood conditioning. Like, oh, poor Earl, you grew up in an orphanage, or Earl, you grew up, then people feel sorry for you. And that becomes your badge of honor. Like you said, there's no badge of honor in that. There's the fact that, today we can choose. We have this ability to choose and decide. And Viktor Frankl talked about it so great in the book, Man's Search for Meaning. And he talked about, you can do everything and anything to me, but you cannot make me think anything different. You cannot take my free will to think about that. What's going to happen between the last action and what my reaction or my response is going to be. You can never tell me that. And that was such a powerful awakening for me based on all the negative conditioning that I grew up with, people beating me up and the physical abuse in my house and everything else was the way, I have the key. I have the answer. I can't blame anybody else. Blaming everybody else takes the power away from me to solve it. If it's my mom's problem and my dad's problem and society's problem, then all I have to do is just sit here and go, oh, poor me. God, life sucks, and then die. And so I think it's so important that the conversation that we're having, Earl, is the fact that when we can wake people up to that opportunity to see that today is a brand new day.
Yes.
That today is an opportunity for me to say, hey, listen, what are the 3 things that I can do that will move the needle on the greatest aspects of my life, personally, professionally, spiritually, physically, whatever it might be, and then take that imperfect action. And most of all, in doing so, surround ourselves with people who are accomplishing the same thing, have already accomplished the same thing, because success leaves clues. Talk to us about that, because so oftentimes we want to be the smartest person in the room. And I've been the smartest person in the room, and it feels real good until you realize that you're the smartest person in the room and that you need to get around smarter people. And I know for me, my trajectory changed astronomically when I got into a mastermind. I started getting around people that made me feel like, oh my God, that guy is fucking book smart. He's like really smart. I'm going to listen to that guy. And I started applying some of those things. Talk to us about how people can take a look at the people they surround themselves with and raise that bar so that they raise the level of outcome and results that they're getting.
In order to answer that question fully, I have to go back and pick up something that you just put down, which was talking about fear. And fear can be such a monster, or it can be a tool. And I perceive fear as being nothing more than a notifier. So when I experience fear, and I do, when I experience fear, then it's the notifier for me to straighten up and pay extraordinary attention. But not when I experience fear, then let that be all that I'm looking at. Oh, I'm afraid, so therefore I cannot go. I must not go. I must not do. I must not say. No, when you feel fear, there's nothing wrong with feeling fear. The most powerful warriors in the world will tell you, hey, if you don't feel fear, something's wrong with you. You're going to get
exactly.
killed.
Yeah.
Stand over here.
Got to get you moving.
Yes, exactly. But fear influences our choices. And this is an answer to your question. Fear influences our choices. So if we allow fear to be that which controls our choices, then we become fearful. If we allow fear to be an indicator, part of the process of our choices, then we become powerful in our choices. If you are a person out there who is wondering why you are not achieving or stepping up to the next level, it is most likely and usually because you have a relationship with fear that supersedes your understanding of your power to choose. Every now is a choice point. And there's great power in choice. And the fact that as soon as you realize that, man, I have a choice put before me, don't be confused. Beat your chest, because that is the moment that you are in the highest level of your power, your dominion, and your authority. So I don't want to lose the point of your question, but if you want to break a chain, a link in a chain that is holding you, that is binding you, that is limiting you right here, right now, understand your words.
Yeah.
Words that you speak to yourself in your mind, that you speak out loud, that you write down. All of those things have actual power to shape your reality. Let me give you, for instance, because my wife happens to be a top-notch Fortune 200 sales trainer. And
Nice.
and so salespeople have to deal with this all of the time, because you are constantly being measured by what you produce. And if you do not produce and the line goes up quite constantly, then you're out.
Yep.
You have to overcome first. Your first customer that you've got to convince is yourself. Two words, not one. Is yourself. That I am, that I can, that I will. And then you put that into a form and a structure, and whether this is, again, commercial or personal, this works and it applies. That knowing that you are a person in your life, that you exist to make choices constantly, over and over again. We make thousands, millions of choices constantly.
Yep.
But when you know that, and then when you believe that you can make the choice, that's when you make a difference. When you believe, and believing means being in the living of, meaning that your words speak it out and your actions manifest it, you become something incredible. You become something that others want to be like.
Yep.
You people walk up to you and say, man, I don't know what it is that you're doing, but hey, can you show me how to do that? Because I want to be like that. I want to be able to do that. And you tell them, hey, tell me about how you make decisions. Tell me about your decisioning process. Tell me a time in your life when you were most confused, when you were most overwhelmed and felt like, I just can't decide what to do. Tell me about that moment. And then I remodel that for them. And not to make them wrong, but to show them what else was on the table, is on the table. So that when you make choices that benefit the now, but give consideration to the next. And I've had to have these conversations with presidential candidates twice last year of other countries, and just the concept of being present to now, making decisions in the now, utilizing fear as a tool so that you optimize your choices and the outcomes from those choices. I think I'm answering your question. I may have gone off on a little tangent there.
No, the little side tangent is great, because it's all facts. It's all facts. And I love the fact that, when we sit there and we're talking about the same thing and different nuances, is when you choose to shift your perspective, when you choose to sit there and realize that if you are in a comfort zone and you stay in a comfort zone, then when do you grow the most? When you're uncomfortable. So if you stay in that comfort zone, guess what? You're not going to grow, and you're not going to achieve the things that you are meant to achieve here. And then ultimately you're going to get to your place in life where you're going to look back on it and you're going to have nothing but time to sit there and ponder, wow, I wish I would have taken that chance. Wow, I wish I would have asked that girl out. Wow, I wish I would have quit my job and started my company a lot sooner. Because those regrets, those are probably the most painful, like, massive pieces of leverage that I use in my life every single day. I think I was brought to this earth to accomplish a ton of things, write books, and impact millions and millions of lives. What a catastrophe it would be to look back on my life and go, wow, I was so afraid of getting up on stage and speaking. I was so afraid of using my voice and my words and my actions to start a podcast, et cetera, et cetera. To be able to have that time to regret that, I mean, that to me is crushing. There's actually a book out there, I'm sure you're aware of it, The 5 Regrets of the Dying. Scott and I talk about it all the time.
Just read
5
that.
Regrets of the Dying. The number one regret of the dying is the fact that they lived the life they thought they were supposed to live instead of living the life they truly wanted to live.
Right.
And that fear that you're talking about, and then the importance of getting around the right people, all of it builds together like a quilt. All of it builds together like a parachute. You think about jumping out of an airplane. What's the most important thing you want to know? Is that parachute going to open? Is it going to hold me? And that parachute is stitched together with all those different pieces of fabric and all those different areas of expertise and trial and error. The same thing applies in our life, which is what you're saying. And I think the next jumping off point, considering where we're at in the year, as of this show right now, we're nearing December 1st pretty quickly. And a lot of people at the beginning of the year do what? They set their goals. They set their New Year's resolutions and things of that nature. And we know that most people give up on their New Year's resolutions within 30 days of starting them. What are some thoughts and ideas that you have proven with your clients and your teams of how to best set goals and how to best measure those goals, how to best look out for what are the things that we're not focusing on? Because I've got a couple of thoughts on that as well. What are some ways we can set people up to really have a strong 2024 with their goals?
Yeah, again, you mentioned New Year's resolutions. I don't do New Year's resolutions. I just know that the end of the year is coming, and I use that as a form of measurement for what I have set out to achieve and to what degree I did achieve it. But I just I always, if this is a resolution, and I'll own it, it's to focus on being more grateful, more grateful, and bringing that into my now process. In the larger scale, I would say that we spend an awful lot of time focused on regret.
Yep. Which
is not the highest use of time. I won't call it a waste of time, but it's really a waste of time.
Yeah.
To focus on regret, to focus on remorse, to focus on I didn't do that, to lie to ourselves that I'm something that I'm not, So I would say that I'm trying to keep this as general, so it's a blanket that you can lay over almost anything. Tell yourself the truth. Tell yourself, 2 words, yourself, 2 words. Tell yourself the truth. And then believe, be in the living of your truth. Once you tell yourself the truth and you are being in the living of your truth, then set a goal that can be broken down into bite-sized morsels. No matter how big it is, break it down so it can be achievable in bite-sized morsels. And, one of my goals last year was for this year, 2023, was I wanted to create this massive fund, and I wanted to have partners in various countries. And man, it was such a huge goal to set for 1 year, to achieve it in 1 year. Because what it required was uncommon. $500 million accessible in this fund, and this and that and this. You got to have this and all these pieces together. But I broke that goal down into achievable portions and made that portion the goal.
Yes.
And then by the end of this year, that goal is achieved. No, I'm saying that goal is achieved by the end of this year. And it wasn't like, oh my God, I got all this. It's just, I looked up and it's November. I'm like, man, I've got 1 piece left to accomplish. 1 piece. And it just flew by. Set your goals, but don't set your goals as boulders.
Right.
Because the concept of a boulder, the bigger the boulder, the heavier it is.
Mm-hmm.
Set your goal as a balloon, filled with helium. because the bigger the balloon, the more and higher it can take you aloft. So, and again, that comes back to impossible. No matter what, we are built to overcome impossible.
Yes.
We're built that way. And we only limit ourselves. So set a goal, know that the goal is done, create bite-sized morsels, get one thing done, get the next thing done, get the next thing done, and you will find that goal achieved, and perhaps even most likely sooner than you thought. Don't let time be the sole guide, because while time is linear, because it's linear, it's a slide rail. So it takes time to accomplish a thing, but it doesn't have to only take this long for it to happen. It can happen sooner.
True.
So I think it's simple. And I listen to a lot of teachers and trainers about goal setting. And it all depends on the individual and how they think. And are they very linear thinker, or are they very creative thinker? But that brings me to my final point on that, is that feel free to be creative. And creativity can look like anything until you apply impossible to it. Then it has to look like a certain thing.
Yeah.
So be creative in setting your goal, because then once that creative goal, I want to fly to the moon, then to Jupiter, then to Mars, and make it back to Earth within a certain amount of time. And you break that down into achievable portions. As you're achieving those portions, you will know how and when and where to alter. This is not plausible. This is not plausible at this time. I don't have the correct resources, but I will be able to do so, modify. And I tell you, just in my own experience, and I always only speak from what I experience,
right?
Anything is achievable. And unfortunately, good or bad.
It's true. It's true. They say you can have anything you want. You just can't have everything you want.
Exactly. And, often people refer back to the secret and say, well, should I sit in my chair at home and just imagine myself in a Ferrari? And next thing I know, I'm in a Ferrari. Well, no, that is, that's inaccurate.
There's a subcomponent of that. You got to visualize, you got to see it, but no, you got to do it. You got to bust your ass.
Exactly what you're saying. They didn't emphasize the do.
Mm-hmm.
They just emphasized the thought.
Yeah. Get the red bicycle. It's like, just want to strangle people. Yeah. Go out and get a paper out.
Go out and get the red bicycle. So yeah, we're just so powerful we are, that once we realize how powerful we are, we'll be faced with choices that actually ground us in our true identity. And once you have your true identity and you understand the application of that identity, and the choices that you make are really what feeds your identity, I mean, there's just nothing that isn't possible. So nothing is impossible. Everything becomes possible and plausible.
Earl Ameen, dude, we've already been talking for 48 minutes. I swear to God, we could go on it. We should do a marathon, because I could talk to you for like 5 more hours. Brother, this has been such a stimulating conversation. I want to catch a couple of the comments that came in here. Got Coach DC in the house. He goes, I popped in just in time to hear me break down. Oops, here it is. He goes, I popped in here just in time to hear him break down my most hated word, believe. And he changed my perspective on it immediately. Much respect. Yeah, actually, I have this right here. Believe on my wristbands. Yes. So the wristbands I sell say believe. The other side says no excuses. The one over here says no excuses, and the other one says unstoppable. Because when my coach asked me, she goes, how did you go from being that homeless 7th grade dropout, blah, 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 blah. How did you become successful? And I said, I took imperfect action and I never gave up. I never stopped. I just kept going and kept going and kept going. And you do have to believe. I mean, to Coach's point, you got to believe. You got to believe that you can achieve it. You got to believe that no matter what has been said or done, that you could, that all has prepared you for what's happening now. Like you said it so eloquently, Earl, that the past is just electrical energy in our brain. So it's us when we wake up to every single day to choose to go back and try to relive that. And, oh, what should I have done differently? Instead, you got to sit there and say, okay, today's the day. What's the one little thing that I can do differently by which doing so will get me the biggest results? There's a book out there called The One Thing. And I remember that's what I took from it. Yeah, Janine says here, Janine, what's up, Janine? Thank you for being here. She goes, you can eat an elephant bite by bite. This man inspires me. Amen. Thank you, Janine, for being here. She also said up here, she goes, this man's wisdom is beyond measure. I'm glad I am under his tutelage. Tutelage. I have not seen that word in a while. We can talk about etymology on that one. We got Jacqueline Rose in the house. What's up, Jacqueline? My Irish sister. She says, I don't hate no one. Don't play the blame game. I don't play the victim. I take total responsibility for my life. Amen, sister. That's what you got to do. We got to take our responsibility for this. Janine says here, she goes, I sent this 30 of my friends and one of them texted me back. She already has a page of notes. Hey, all right. So we got people watching. Earl, I just appreciate you so much for coming on here and sharing your wisdom. I want to have you back on again because I know we could talk about so many different things and I love flowing with you. But in the interest of people wanting to have a piece of Earl, where can people get a hold of you and continue this conversation and find out more about you?
Sure. That's my website there, Earls Enterprises. And again, we are adaptive strategists. So it's not just here's a solution to you and then we walk away, but we hand you a solution that works for now. And as circumstances change, it'll work for then. Yeah. And
they also can get a hold of you at Earl at Grey Owl Enterprises.
That is correct.
Awesome. For those of you guys listening again on the audio podcast, Grey Owl Enterprises, it's GREYOWL Enterprises. You guys can spell that. You guys are smart people. Earl, I'm going to place you backstage, brother. I can't thank you again enough for tuning in and being on the Unfiltered shows as well. And then now being here on the Raw Unscripted show. Always. I enjoy it and I appreciate you. Don't go anywhere because I still want to talk to you, but I'm just going to end out the show here real quick.
Okay. Thank you. I'm honored. Take care.
You are awesome. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate all of you guys, whether you're watching live or on the replay, listening to the audio podcast or the video cast. Thank you. And like I said at the very beginning of the show, if you didn't catch the beginning of the show, go back because we drop right in right away talking about why do we believe that nothing is impossible. And it really is about rewiring our perspectives about our past, present, and our future. It's about saying today is a brand new day. What is it that I'm going to start doing differently? Who am I going to start hanging around differently? How am I going to start shifting the things that I do in the morning? One of the tips I'll give you guys that helped me and helps a ton of people is when you get up in the morning, don't pick this up and start looking at the fucking news. That is stupid. Just don't do it. You can't control it. Like, oh, I got to know. No, you don't need to know. What you got to do is wake up in the morning before your eyes open, say what you're grateful for. I'm grateful for my wife sleeping in the bed next to me. I'm grateful for my son being alive in the room next to me. I'm grateful for my animals. I'm grateful for the fact that I got to wake up another day. I'm grateful for the bed that I'm sleeping in. I'm grateful for the fact that my heater works, whatever it might be. Start your day with gratitude. And as you're going throughout your day, guess what? You're going to find more things to be grateful for. I'm grateful for my dry erase boards. I'm grateful for my ceiling fan. I'm grateful for my TV. I'm grateful for my beautiful guest. Because when you focus on those things, guess what starts to come into your life more and more and more? Opportunities, because you're changing your vibrational frequency to sit there and say, hey, listen, I'm abundant. I have lots of things in my life, but what do? We wake up, oh, today's going to suck. And this person's going to be in a bad mood and traffic's going to be this. And we sit there and guess what? Our reticular activation system goes out there and finds it. See, there's people cutting me off in traffic. People are jerks, blah, blah, blah. This is bad. This is terrible, blah, blah, blah. I guess we get more of it, but you can change that. I want you to go to the mirror in the morning and change it. What am I going to do today that's going to be a little bit different? How can I stretch myself outside of my comfort zone to do things differently? It's about leverage, ladies and gentlemen. It's about resources. If you're not getting what it is that you want to get in your life, you're not pushing yourself enough. You're not trying hard enough. You're not giving it your best effort. Like we said in this broadcast, what is your best? Like when you wake up and there's blood, sweat, and tears involved in it, that you gave it, you left it out on the field. Like, did you really do your best today with that marketing proposal? Did you do your best with your spouse? Did you do your best with your kid? Did you do your best to respond instead of react? Or did you just sit there and say you tried to do your best? Like we talked about here in the broadcast, trying. Stop trying and just start doing. Do it. Stop fucking saying, I'm going to try to do that. No, I'm going to lose weight next year. I'm going to lose weight. Why? Because I deserve to, because I love myself, because I don't want to end in my life and being alone. right? I'm going to do the things that I need to do. I'm going to keep trying different things until I figure it out. I'm going to hire the experts that are going to help me, hold me accountable to do that. You got to do different things, ladies and gentlemen, to get different outcomes. Dr. Wayne Dyer said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And so from this conversation, please go back and listen to this again. Take those notes and definitely connect with Earl, because the man is a genius. I love listening to him. There's not too many people I can say that about in this world. There's a lot of smart people, but geniuses. Connect with him. Connect with them. I encourage you to do that. Please share this out if you got value out of this, which I'm sure you did. Share it out on your social media and say, hey, listen, I just listened to these two cats. They just talked about this. They just changed my perspective about the word believe. They just inspired me to sit there and make sure that 2024 is going to be my best year ever. Who's on board? Put that in your social media post, because my goal is to reach millions of people. I've reached hundreds of thousands of people. Now my goal is to be up to the next level, millions and millions of people. And I need your help to do that. So I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Take us with you. We've been, like I said, 239 shows already. Go back and listen to them. There's some amazing guests on there. Life-changing stuff. I'll be back again next week with some amazing people. I got Mark Mawini next week, so you don't want to miss that. And then after that, we've got three special shows. I can talk that I'm going to be doing with my friend Patricia, and we're going to have some amazing guests on there. We're going to have a little bit of fun with that. So I encourage you to tune in all throughout December. And I love you guys. Stay kick-ass unstoppable. If there's anything I could do, of course, you can always go to noexcusescoach.com. You can check out my group accountability coaching program, which is going phenomenal, because when you have accountability, guess what? You get results. I love you guys. We'll see you next week on